So this is part two to Did You Know, to yesterday's Did You Know, talking about perimenopause and menopause. So I did not think that last video was going to get as much traction as it did, as many questions as it did. So let's go ahead and address the big picture, the why. So I know most women know menopause exists and it's coming one day and it's going to come get you. But we most of the time think about it as an old lady thing. It's not happening to me now. And that's where it stays till you get there, and then you're dealing with the symptoms. So let's bring it back to the why. Why does this happen? Why does our body change? Your body changes because your body operates in seasons and shifting. You're a child, you get your period, you're in your prime baby making season, and then you're transitioning out of that, and they call it like the grandmother phase or something to that effect. It doesn't mean you need to be a grandmother at 40 something. Maybe you should not. But your body is transitioning out of that. You're not here to make babies till the day you die. It's not to say there aren't outliers. There are women having babies at 40, 50, 60, but that's not the norm. Don't conflate what happens sometimes with the norm, and because that's not the norm. For the norm, we are losing our periods and it's on its way out, and it starts about 30, late 30s, early 40s. Okay, with that, there are two hormones specifically. We have more than that, but there are two hormones specifically that are in their prime when your period starts. Remember, I don't know if most girls remember, it was a horrible experience. It hurt like hell, right? And that was estrogen paving its way into something that did not exist prior to this, as far as your body having estrogen, right? Then it kind of normalized for most people, because I know people deal with horrible periods, but then it somewhat normalizes as you get older, years of experience, years of doing it over and over and over. Or maybe if you have a child beforehand, it might regulate somewhat as far as not being so horrible. Right, so estrogen, progesterone, they're supposed to be up and down, right? And at a pretty normal tempo while you're in this season of baby making. If you eat disruptive foods or all these extra things, this might disrupt your period. You might not have a pleasurable period. So I don't want to mix these two things up, because there's another topic. But for the most part, estrogen rise and progesterone rise and lows there's tempo while you're in this season. On your way out of the season, late 30s, sometimes early 30s, late 30s, that's when estrogen can wreak havoc and start being higher than normal or lower than normal, where it should have been having a consistent track. Same thing for progesterone. So what do? Most women just deal with it, and doctors just tell you this is a phase that you're going to go through. I don't know how long you're going to go through it. Some people get their hormones checked once a year. And in my opinion, that doesn't work, because they're capturing a moment, like a snapshot, your doctors, versus capturing cycles. So we'll talk about what I do in the future in another video. But what I want to suggest you do is, if you're losing these hormones, right, what would help you feel better again? And this is probably going to be controversial to some people. There are natural supplements out there, but there's also hormone replacement therapy. So hormone replacement therapy replaces estrogen, estradiol, right? It can be pills, it can be creams, it can be different ways to get it. Same thing for progesterone. And these symptoms that you're experiencing will decrease or go away completely, because those hormones that went away, now you can replace them. Some people are going to say, no, I'm not going to put anything in my body, and I'm just going to tell you, then just deal with it. But there are ways to combat these things. It doesn't mean, getting older doesn't mean you have to just punish yourself and say, I'm going to deal with it for 5-10 years feeling like this. There are ways to mitigate it. And a lot of people are afraid of HRT, hormone replacement therapy, because in the past, there were ones that were out there that were causing cancer. That is not the case today for most women. So please look into that. All right, so last thing I'll leave you with is, back in the days when I think they were first starting to trial hormones and add more hormones for women, it was still fairly new. I know one of the hormones that they created was made out of horse urine. Yes, I said it, horse urine. So I know for thinking of a horse's profile versus a woman's profile, totally different. So I know there was cancer happening at that time, and people were afraid to introduce hormones, especially if they were not bioidentical, means and meaning they were not exactly like our hormones. Now they have created hormones that are called bioidentical hormones that mimic our hormones or exactly the same as our hormones. So what I've looked at during my research as far as like risk of cancer and all that, there's not really a risk. The only risk that I've seen is like if you have a history of cancer or if you start the hormones way late, there might be some risk. Like with everything, there's risk, but something to keep in mind. But I would say speak to your doctor about this. Ask them questions, and if they're not interested in talking about your hormones, the thing that's causing the change, maybe it's time to look at another doctor. Invest in you. I mean, you're walking around with this for the rest of your life. Also, hit me up if you have any questions. Everything woman related is my topic.